Most men spend their lives trying to fix themselves. To be more confident. More charming. More acceptable. They believe attraction comes after correction. But what if that belief is wrong? What if the very things you're trying to hide? Your silence, your intensity, your sensitivity, are not weaknesses at all. What if they only feel like flaws? Because you've been carrying them with shame instead of authority? This video is not about becoming better. It's about becoming whole. Because the men women feel drawn to are not the most polished ones in the room. They are the men who stand comfortably in their own skin. Without apology. Without performance. Without trying to be chosen. Listen closely. What you call a flaw may be the source of your strongest attraction. Once you stop fighting it. Welcome to the channel, Stoic Love Wisdom. This is where every story and lesson about love will help you find the answer. Today, we will explore a new perspective through the topic, how smart men turn their flaws into charm. These are real-life experiences and profound lessons that will change the way you perceive love. Follow me, because the most surprising and interesting things are still waiting for you ahead. Before starting, find a quiet place, put on your headphones and relax your mind. Let the sharing in this video help you feel more fully and enjoy every meaningful moment. Are you ready to embark on this journey? Let's begin. Part 1, The Illusion of Perfection, Why Flawless Men Are Forgettable. Most men grow up believing the same quiet lie. If I fix my flaws, I'll finally be attractive. They believe attraction is something earned by correction. That once they become more confident, more successful, more complete, then love will come. I believe this too. I spent years trying to polish myself into something acceptable. Hiding insecurities. Softening rough edges. Apologizing for parts of my nature I didn't yet understand. And what I learned, slowly and painfully, is this. Perfection doesn't attract. Presence does. Why, flaws are not the enemy. Most men misunderstand the word flaw. A flaw is not a weakness. A flaw is a signal. It tells the world where you've been shaped, what you've endured, where you've been tested. The problem isn't having flaws. The problem is being ashamed of them. Shame collapses posture. It fragments energy. It makes a man seek permission to exist as he is. And nothing drains attraction faster than a man apologizing for himself. The Stoic view of imperfection. Stoicism never asked men to be flawless. It asked them to be aligned. Marcus Aurelius wrote not to erase weakness, but to observe it without judgment. A Stoic man does not say, I must remove this part of me. He says, this is part of my nature. How do I carry it with dignity? That shift changes everything. Why trying to be fixed makes you invisible. Men who obsess over self-improvement often miss something crucial. When you're constantly fixing yourself, you're communicating that you are not yet worthy. That message leaks through tone, posture, and behavior. You hesitate. You overthink. You wait for validation. And women don't feel drawn to men who are almost ready. They feel drawn to men who are rooted. Rooted men don't chase approval. They don't hide. They don't perform. They stand where they are. Confidence is not the absence of flaws. This is one of the most damaging myths in modern dating. Confidence is not believing you are perfect. Confidence is being unbothered by your imperfections. A man who stutters but speaks calmly anyway is more attractive than a man who speaks perfectly but seeks approval. A man who is quiet and grounded is more compelling than a man who talks endlessly to mask insecurity. What attracts is not smoothness. It is self-ownership. How flaws become signals of depth. Here is a truth you rarely hear. Your flaws are not neutral. They lean in one of two directions. Handled poorly, they repel. Handled with self-respect, they add depth. A scar can signal damage, or survival. Silence can signal insecurity, or composure. Intensity can signal chaos, or purpose. The difference is not the trait. It is the frame. And framing is a choice. Why women feel drawn to men who don't hide. When a man hides his flaws, a woman senses tension. Something feels guarded. Controlled. Curated. But when a man allows his imperfections to exist without explanation, something relaxes. She feels emotional honesty, psychological safety, authentic presence. Not because he confesses everything, but because he is not at war with himself. That inner peace is rare. And rarity creates attraction. The masculine power of integration. Integration means this. You don't fight parts of yourself. You don't glorify them either. You integrate them into a coherent whole. A Stoic man knows. Every trait carries both risk and power. His job is not to erase traits, but to discipline them. Anger becomes boundaries. Sensitivity becomes intuition. Solitude becomes strength. This is not self-improvement. This is self-command. Why women remember men with edges. Perfect men blur together. Men with edges stand out. Edges create contrast. Contrast creates memory. Memory creates emotional attachment. A man who is too polished feels generic. A man who is grounded, imperfect, and composed feels real. And real men are hard to forget. The first shift every intelligent man must make. If you remember only one thing from this part, remember this. Your goal is not to eliminate your flaws. Your goal is to stop betraying yourself because of them. The moment you stop hiding, stop apologizing, stop shrinking, your so-called weaknesses begin to radiate something unexpected. Authority. Not loud authority. Quiet authority. The kind that doesn't ask to be noticed, but always is. Have you ever realized that, in love, moments of silence are sometimes more powerful than 1,000 words? Because in silence, we can hear our heartbeat more clearly and feel the presence of the other person more deeply. Here, I want to explore with you that strength, peace, and stability even when love goes through challenges. If you feel that these shares bring you something positive, please click like to support. And if you haven't clicked subscribe, do it now, so you don't miss any insight into love and maturity. I also hope to hear your story. What is the most valuable lesson that love has taught you? Please share in the comments section so we can learn and be inspired together. Come on, let's move on to the next part with a more prepared mind. Part 2, Controlled Vulnerability, How Flaws Become Magnetic Only After Self-Respect. There is a mistake many men make after hearing that women like vulnerability. They open too fast. They share too much. They confuse emotional exposure with emotional depth. And instead of becoming attractive, they become emotionally heavy. Vulnerability is powerful, but only when it is contained. Why raw vulnerability repels? A man who exposes his wounds without structure is not being authentic. He is asking to be held. An attraction cannot survive when a woman feels like she must stabilize your emotional world. Stoicism teaches discipline before expression. You don't suppress emotion. You master it. Only mastered emotion creates trust. The difference between strength and emotional leakage. Strength does not mean hiding pain. It means not bleeding on people who didn't cut you. When you speak from a place of integration, your flaws sound like experience. When you speak from a place of need, your flaws sound like unresolved pain. Women don't reject men for having wounds. They withdraw from men who are still trapped inside them. Why timing determines attraction. There is a time to reveal, and a time to remain silent. Men who reveal too early remove mystery. Men who reveal too late feel guarded. The Stoic path is awareness. You share after connection, not before it. You reveal with calm, not urgency. This pacing signals emotional intelligence. How self-respect changes the meaning of a flaw. The same flaw can repel or attract depending on posture. A man who says, "I struggle with trust," while standing grounded, calm, and self-directed, sounds reflective. The same sentence spoken with insecurity sounds like a warning. Words matter less than the state behind them. Why women feel safe around men who own their imperfections. Safety does not come from perfection. It comes from predictability. A man who owns his flaws is not volatile. He is not defensive. He is not reactive. She knows where he stands. She knows where she stands. That clarity creates emotional safety. And safety is the soil where desire can grow. Vulnerability without self-command is burden. This is where many men fail. They believe honesty requires full transparency. It does not. You don't owe anyone your entire emotional history. You owe yourself coherence. A Stoic man shares selectively. Not to impress. Not to seek validation. But because the moment is aligned. How flaws become proof of depth. When you speak of a flaw without shame, you transform it into proof. Proof that you have lived. Proof that you have reflected. Proof that you have survived. Women are not attracted to innocence. They are attracted to earned clarity. The masculine frame that holds vulnerability. Masculinity is not emotional absence. It is emotional containment. You allow feeling. But you don't let feeling lead. This containment makes vulnerability attractive. Not overwhelming. The Stoic rule for revealing imperfection. Before you share, ask yourself one question. Am I sharing to connect, or to be rescued? If the answer is rescue, remain silent. If the answer is connection, speak calmly. This single rule will save you years of confusion. Why intelligent men reveal less, not more. As men mature, they realize something. Not everything needs to be said. Not every emotion needs to be voiced. Silence, when chosen consciously, often communicates more strength than confession. What vulnerability should ultimately say? True vulnerability says, I know myself. I am not ashamed. I am not asking you to fix me. And when a woman hears that message, your flaws no longer feel like weaknesses. They feel like gravity. Part 3, The Alchemy of Weakness, Turning Traits into Attraction. Most men try to eliminate what makes them different. They soften their edges. They dilute their intensity. They hide their silence. In doing so, they don't become more attractive. They become forgettable. What intelligent men learn, often through loss, is that attraction is not created by removal. It is created by transformation. Why traits are neutral until you frame them. No trait is inherently attractive or unattractive. Silence can be awkward, or magnetic. Intensity can be overwhelming, or compelling. Sensitivity can be fragile, or perceptive. The difference is not the trait. It is the frame. Men who lack frame become victims of their traits. Men with frame turn traits into signals. Silence, from awkwardness to presence. Quiet men often believe they must talk more. They mistake volume for value. But silence, when grounded, becomes presence. A man who speaks less, but listens fully, creates depth. His pauses slow the room. His words land heavier. Women don't lean toward men who fill space. They lean toward men who hold it. Intensity. From chaos to direction. Intensity scares people only when it lacks purpose. When intensity is undisciplined, it feels volatile. When it is contained, it feels powerful. A Stoic man does not suppress intensity. He aims it. Into work. Into movement. Into purpose. Direction turns fire into warmth. Sensitivity, from fragility to perception. Sensitivity becomes a liability only when unmanaged. When a man is ruled by emotion, he feels unstable. When he understands his emotions, he becomes perceptive. Sensitive men notice shifts. They read rooms. They feel undercurrents. When paired with self-command, sensitivity becomes intuition. And intuition creates connection. Insecurity, from weakness to humility. Insecurity never disappears completely. What changes is how you relate to it. Men who deny insecurity become arrogant. Men who drown in it become needy. Men who acknowledge it, without obeying it, become grounded. Humility rooted in strength feels safe. Why women respond to men who are comfortable being uncomfortable. Growth does not require comfort. Attraction responds to composure. A man who can sit with discomfort, without collapsing, signals maturity. He doesn't rush to fix. He doesn't overreact. He doesn't perform. That calm under pressure is deeply attractive. The Stoic principle of internal order. Stoicism is not emotional numbness. It is internal order. You feel everything, but you choose what governs you. This order turns inner conflict into coherence. And coherence is magnetic. Why overcompensation kills attraction? Many men overcompensate for perceived flaws. The quiet man becomes loud. The intense man becomes controlling. The sensitive man becomes defensive. Overcompensation is fear wearing a mask. Women sense it immediately. Authenticity does not overcorrect. It stabilizes. The masculine art of containment. Containment is the ability to hold energy without leaking it. Anger without explosion. Desire without desperation. Silence without withdrawal. Containment turns raw traits into refined power. What women actually feel around integrated men. They feel calm, curiosity, safety, depth. Not because the man is perfect, but because he is consistent within himself. The turning point every man faces. At some point, you must choose. Will you fight who you are? Or will you master how you carry it? The first leads to exhaustion. The second leads to authority. The quiet shift that changes everything. The moment you stop trying to fix yourself and start directing yourself. Your so-called weaknesses stop leaking insecurity. They begin to project character. And character is irresistible. In love, sometimes silence is the answer. It gives us time to listen to ourselves and understand the other person's heart better. That's also the reason I share stories on this channel, so that you have a pause, a peaceful space to reflect. If you find this meaningful, please click like and don't forget to subscribe, so that we can continue to accompany each other on the journey to find a peaceful and profound love. Now, let's continue the rest with me. Part 4, Self-Acceptance, Why Stopping Self-Rejection Makes You Irresistible. Most men believe attraction comes from becoming better, stronger, more confident, more impressive. But very few realize this. Nothing repels faster than a man who secretly rejects himself. You can improve endlessly. But if improvement is driven by self-disgust, it will never create attraction. Why self-rejection leaks through everything. Self-rejection is subtle, but relentless. It shows up as over-explaining, seeking reassurance, performing confidence instead of embodying it, adjusting yourself to be accepted. Women may not articulate it, but they feel it. Because attraction responds not to effort, but to inner alignment. The Stoic meaning of acceptance. Stoic acceptance is not resignation. It does not say, "This is who I am, I can't change." It says, "This is who I am right now, and I will not be at war with it." Acceptance creates stability. Stability creates presence. Presence creates attraction. Why self-acceptance feels like strength. A man who accepts himself doesn't rush to prove, doesn't panic in silence, doesn't perform masculinity. He moves slower. He reacts less. He speaks with intention. This restraint reads as confidence. The difference between improving and performing. Improvement is internal. Performance is external. Improvement changes how you live. Performance changes how you appear. Women don't fall for performance. They feel alignment. When improvement is genuine, it feels quiet, grounded, unforced. Why women feel calm around self-accepting men. Self-accepting men are emotionally predictable. Not boring. Predictable in the sense that they don't flip emotionally. They don't punish with silence. They don't explode from insecurity. That calm becomes addictive. The masculine core of non-neediness. Non-neediness is not indifference. It is self-sufficiency. You want connection, but you don't require it to feel whole. That distinction changes everything. Why chasing improvement can become another mask. Many men hide behind self-work. They delay intimacy. They avoid vulnerability. They say, "I'm not ready yet." But readiness doesn't come from perfection. It comes from self-trust. The Stoic rule that ends self-doubt. Marcus Aurelius wrote about acting in accordance with nature. In love, this means stop forcing yourself to be more than you are. Stop shrinking yourself to be accepted. Stand where you are. With dignity. Why women trust men who trust themselves. Trust is contagious. A man who trusts himself makes decisions calmly, accepts outcomes, doesn't cling. Women relax around that energy. Relaxation creates attraction. The shift from seeking approval to allowing choice. Self-acceptance removes urgency. You no longer ask, "Do you like me?" You allow. Choose if you wish. That space is powerful. What self-acceptance ultimately communicates. Without saying a word, it says, "I am not at war with myself. I don't need permission to exist. I welcome connection, but I don't chase it." And that message is deeply compelling. Part 5, Quiet Magnetism, Why Men Who Stop Trying to Attract the most. At some point, a man understands something that cannot be taught. Attraction is not created. It is revealed. The moment you stop trying to become desirable, you begin to appear desirable. Not because you changed who you are, but because you stopped fighting yourself. Why effort stops working after a certain point. Effort can open doors. It cannot sustain desire. Desire fades the moment it feels managed, manufactured, or forced. A man who constantly tries to attract signals that attraction is not natural to him. A man who lives aligned lets attraction happen. The final transformation of flaws. By now, you understand. Your flaws were never the problem. They were raw material. When disciplined, your silence became presence. Your intensity became direction. Your sensitivity became perception. Your insecurity became humility. Nothing was erased. Everything was refined. This refinement is what women feel. Why women feel drawn without knowing why. Quiet magnetism has no tactics. It comes from inner coherence, emotional restraint, self-trust, calm direction. Women often describe it vaguely. He feels different. I don't know why, but I feel safe around him. They are responding to consistency of being. The Stoic life is the attraction. Stoicism is not a philosophy you explain. It is a way you move. How you sit in silence. How you respond under pressure. How you accept loss without bitterness. How you desire without clinging. These things cannot be faked. And they are deeply attractive. Why men who don't impress are remembered. Impression fades. Character remains. A man who tries to impress creates a temporary image. A man who lives in alignment creates a lasting imprint. Women forget lines. They remember how they felt in your presence. The end of performing masculinity. True masculinity is not loud. It does not announce itself. It is calm under tension. Stable in uncertainty. Open without weakness. It does not chase approval. It does not fear rejection. It stands. Why this changes every relationship. Once you stop trying to fix, hide, or compensate, your relationships simplify. You stop negotiating attraction. You stop proving worth. You stop betraying yourself. And from that place, connection becomes honest. The Stoic measure of a man. A Stoic man is not measured by who desires him. He is measured by how he treats himself. How he carries discomfort. How little he needs validation. Attraction becomes a side effect. Not the goal. The final truth. The most attractive men are not flawless. They are integrated. They know their edges. They respect their limits. They trust their nature. And because they are not trying to be chosen, they often are. Closing reflection. Stop asking, how do I become attractive? Ask instead, how do I stop rejecting who I already am? The answer to that question changes everything. Conclusion. In the end, the truth is quieter than most men expect. Attraction was never hidden inside perfection. It was hidden inside self-ownership. The men who become magnetic are not the ones who erase their flaws, but the ones who stop being ashamed of them. They don't rush to explain. They don't overcorrect. They don't perform confidence to cover uncertainty. They stand where they are, with composure. Stoic love teaches a simple principle. You don't need to become someone else to be chosen. You need to stop rejecting who you already are. When a man integrates his traits, his silence, his intensity, his sensitivity, they stop leaking insecurity and start projecting character. Nothing is forced. Nothing is exaggerated. Everything becomes coherent. And coherence is deeply attractive. Women don't respond to effort disguised as worth. They respond to presence rooted in self-respect. They feel the difference between a man who is trying to be enough and a man who knows he already is. This is why intelligent men attract without chasing. Why they are remembered without performing. Why their flaws feel like depth, not damage. Stoic magnetism is not a technique. It is a state. A state where you accept your nature, discipline your energy, and live without negotiating your value. From that place, attraction becomes effortless. Not because you learned how to impress, but because you stop trying to escape yourself. And the moment you stop running from who you are, others stop overlooking you. That is the quiet power of a man who has made peace with himself. Thank you for watching today's video. I'm so happy to share my lessons about love and relationships with you. I hope you learned something new and can apply it to your life. If you find the video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you for always accompanying and supporting me. Wish you a good day and don't forget to love yourself a lot.